All right, everybody. Well, welcome to our August edition of Demo Day. As a reminder, we do these on the last Friday of every month. Now, to dive right into Demo Day, we're going to have Podium present first. So, Mo, if you would like to share your screen and go ahead and present your guys' product, and feel free to ask questions as well. We'll hold those till after the presenters are done, and I'll ask them. So just throw them into the chat.
Presentation.
Yep.
Brilliant. So yeah, thank you, David, for this opportunity, and to KP Ready. I'm actually taking this call from Singapore, so I'm going to apologize in advance. It's midnight here, so if I'm incoherent in any way, just I hope you'll forgive me. I'm really excited to sort of introduce you guys to Podium. So Podium is the name of our software company, but it's also the name of our product. A little bit about, I guess, who we are and a bit about myself. So we started off as an R&D project in a large-scale property developer, and we spent about probably 2 or 3 years of R&D, and we successfully spun it out into a startup last year, where we were sort of fortunate enough to sort of get some good partners and I guess investors in Autodesk, and Lendlease and Sabana Jurong, to name a few. Our business is made up of two halves. So it's people from the industry like myself. So I was a property developer before I sort of joined Podium, but we have architects in the team, people who are engineers, mechanical engineers, structural engineers, and then the other half of our business is who I call the techies, and those are the people who have sort of deep software product development sort of skill sets, and they've worked in probably other industries trying to transform and build solutions for those industries, and sort of they've come on the journey with us in Podium. From my background, I've spent almost close to 2 decades in property development. I've been really lucky to be on some large urban regen projects in Australia, Singapore, and Malaysia. That's still my passion. I love sort of going and sort of seeing how we've sort of transformed places, and how we've sort of changed how people sort of use the space once our developments are complete. It's also helped, I guess, a lot in joining Podium in terms of understanding what are some of the sort of challenges, I would say, in the industry, particularly for large-scale property developers. Very, very much aware of, I guess, I think we spent something like $27 trillion in developments globally, but we spend a lot of money up front in a gamble, I would call it, in terms of buying land or bidding for land. And based on what the information or the workflows that we have today, the designs are not always fully complete. There's a lot of sort of inaccurate data, but I guess the biggest problem is that property development takes a lot of time. Some of the projects that I've been on have been 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. And so over that period of time, there's a lot of sort of changes or that happen. And ultimately what that means is projects are either over budget or are severely delayed. And that's part of, I guess, part of the industry. It's part of business as usual, as I call it. It's the way the process works. It's very iterative. You work with your designers who coordinate with the engineers, will then bring on the contractors, will then bring in the supply chain, and that whole process on some of our projects are 12 or 13 months in design before you even start actually building. There's a lot of productivity issues that we have as well. There's a lot of, I mean, we have a very heavy carbon emitter as well, right? So those are sort of all of the problems we have in the industry, and I think everybody is very acutely aware of, and that's why I guess at Podium, we think this is a problem that's actually worth solving. And in one line, I would say, what we're trying to solve is we would like to produce a building that is designed efficiently, priced accurately, and built sustainably. And we would like the design to get 50% faster, and that's our target. We would like the building to be built 20% faster and ultimately cost 20% less as well. How are we doing it? So at the core of the Podium product is an engine or that um, has really powered our technology. So we've created an agentic AI platform that is meant for property developers, and it really automates the design of a building. And it automates it in a way that you are coordinating in parallel your space, your structure, and your MEP, and it's allowing both your supply chain, your contractors, and your designers, developers all to sit on the platform from the start of the process and complete the design completely. What we're doing is enabling effectively the developers to, at least in the start, to make decisions more faster and more with greater level of certainty. We allowing the supply chain to sort of integrate as well, and that's a, I think, I guess, a big sort of standout of our product. So this idea of creating buildable buildings or DFMA, you can actually now build with DFMA from the start in mind. We are really pushing this idea of don't start every project with a blank sheet of paper. I'm very familiar with like design guidelines, product books, and a lot of developers have these, right? And so our technology allows you to codify those templates, those floor plates, those design guidelines into the platform, so you can very rapidly start creating the design of your building on your site, depending on where it is, right? Really fast. So you're not really starting from scratch. And I guess what I said in the beginning was our product is really targeting developers. A lot of the I guess a lot of the software today is probably more downstream to designers and contractors. We've made a very intentional decision to target property developers. We think they're an underserved market. I don't really use software in my roles. I use PowerPoint, maybe Word or PDF. I allowed my sort of more technical team to sort of use software. So we're trying to work through this idea of if there's a platform where that's empowered by developers, but they can actually um, bring the key stakeholders on the platform. That's really going to drive the transformation of the industry. Today, we've really been addressing the personas around design, consultants, engineers, and we are now on the road over the next 6 months to target development managers, program managers, and schedulers and business development leads. And then finally, we're also going to want to tie in authorities as well. But at the center of the product is really this automation design engine that is enabling this collaboration on the platform. So if I just zoom into actually the actual product, the first thing you'll notice about our product is that we actually start with the integration of components into the platform. So they can be generic components, but we've also started putting real life components from precasters, from lift manufacturers, ACMV manufacturers as well. So that's already put into the platform. So when the developer comes in, along with their templates, they can actually choose to actually design with the supply component already in their building. Um, and so when they're setting their targets and they bring in, if they have an in-house design team or if they're bringing in with the architects and engineers, they're constrained by the fact that there are actual components in there. So they don't have to, it's not just them designing willy-nilly. They can just basically configure the building and make it more efficient, but they're guided by the targets the developer has set in or the brief the developer has set in. And this is all choreographed on Podium. So the first part of the product is if you log onto the product, it is what you would expect from a typical platform. So you'll see, depending on your persona, your projects that you are working on. If you're working on a few projects, you'll see a few of the sites that have all the site information. It'll capture some of the workflows that you might have within your organization as well. You'll see all of the information that's pertinent to the site that you are sort of prospecting or designing and developing on. The first product that comes off the market of Podium, and it's in the first view of the product. So if you click into a product or a scheme, you are taken to a place what we call the site view. So the site view is where you can do feasibility. We call it feasibility plus plus or feasibility like never before. So instead of just playing with massing, you actually are configuring. So in this case, it's a residential typology. So it's a residential building on top of a tower. A few call outs. The residential building is actually designed on floor plates of a one bedroom, two bedroom, three bedroom apartments that are actually from the developer. So we allowing the developer to actually create their own templates or layouts, which would be typical for a lot of residential developers. And then from a brief perspective, saying, I want 20% to be one bedroom, 30% to be two bedroom, and then 50% to be three bedroom. And Podium is actually sort of spreading those out and trying to work out how we can sort of maximize the GFA. And off the back of that, you get all of the sort of data that you would expect to get out of feasibility. So all of your areas, your tables, your schedules, your costing, you're sort of seeing it on the side view. The next view that you'll see on Podium, so once you're sort of maybe happy with your scheme, you can zoom into the particular building, and we call it the building view. And this is really, I guess, where we stand out from a product perspective. So we're able to take that building and really take it from what I would say feasible in concept to schematic and beyond. So it'll structurally solve the building, and you can export into eTabs and sort of check it if it's structurally sound. We also solving for MEP as well. So in this case, this is the industrial typology that we're also working on. So we've got residential, we've got industrial, and we've now starting data center as well. So off the back of this, what you're seeing here between side view and building view, typically depending on how typically on the building, it could be 5 minutes to 20 minutes that you would wait for it to solve. Um, yes, it seems long, but I mean that building would have taken someone 2.5 weeks to maybe a month to sort of do, and maybe it might be just be the structure. It wouldn't have been the MEP there as well. So it is a huge jump in terms of capability. You are able to then export that into Revit and to continue your sort of design there. You can export the bill of materials out into your cost toolings to get more sort of accurate costing data as well. And like I said, what we're trying to do is we're trying to basically push the design. So we want to take that all the way to detailed design as well, and try to basically automate the process so that you get to tender as fast as possible. So if you zoom out from the product and the three spaces that I talked about, which is the platform, the side view, and the building view, essentially what we are trying to do with Podium is we're trying to basically compress what would have maybe taken 8 to 12 months of design time. We're trying to compress that to 6 to 8 months. And by designing with supply components already into your design, we are also trying to reduce the tender and fabrication process as well, which will then impact the delivery cycle of the building. Um, we've been sort of lucky to sort of have some really good sort of key sort of customers. So um, for customers using Podium today, we've helped them reduce some consultant spend because a lot of that is sort of automated. So in the first iteration for feasibility, they can actually do it in-house within their business. And then it also helped them scale up how many feasibilities or sites they can look at. Because I guess our iteration, like you could potentially do a feasibility within a couple of hours. So you could scale that up to maybe 10 feasibilities if you'd like in the team. So that's what's happened with one of our clients. With some other clients, what we've done is we've actually reduced their design. So we've taken them all the way to schematic and reduced their design time to get to schematic by 50%, which which also sort of caters into some of the internal workflows that they have to get some of the design approvals. And we really moved from conceptual massing to schematic design for layouts for residential within a day versus 1 to 2 weeks per scheme the design consultants would have spent as well. So that is, I guess, the main part of the presentation and the product. I will sort of say that um, I'm happy to sort of share, like, that we've got a very long demo. In fact, our last release was the MEP release, which is really, really cool. It's on our YouTube website. we're going to be, I'm assuming a lot of the audience today is actually in the US. So the Podium team is actually going to be in the US on the 15th of September. So we've been lucky enough to sort of showcase our product at Autodesk University. So if you're attending, do sort of check us out there. And if you see any of the Podium team, then go and grab them and pest them and ask them all of these difficult questions. Thank you, David.
Yeah, Mo, just a couple of questions from like your
Sure.
integration standpoint, since the industry in the US operates on Revit. What is
Yeah.
your interoperability with Revit or any other common systems?
So at the moment, because of I guess our collaboration with Autodesk, so we can export to Revit. At the moment, what we can't do is export back from Revit back into Podium, which is something that we are working on. And like I said, like a lot of the developers that we work to have either compliance checking tools like for structure and stuff like that. So we interoperate with them depending on what they sort of want. So one of the clients, for example, in Singapore wanted us to integrate into eTabs to check the structure. So we've done that as well.
And if anybody wants to get a hold of you to set up a demo or look at potentially using your product or investing in your product, how should they get a hold of you? If you want to just put your contact information into the chat to everyone, that way anybody who
Sure.
wants to get more
So
information on Podium, reach out.
I'll definitely put my my email in the chat, but we can if you go directly to our website, there's a button where you can just basically click and it'll take you to if you put your details and we'll sort of organize a demo. But for today, I'll put my email there as well. You can directly contact me.
Great. Well, I appreciate it, Mo. Great stuff. Appreciate everybody in the audience taking your time to watch these three startups showcase their products and innovation. It's a great way to support the community and continue to drive innovation in the built environment. And if anybody has any questions, either reach out directly to the people presenting or feel free to reach out to myself and I can connect you to the applicable person. So that last Friday of every month will be our demo day. So feel free to tune in monthly to see what's coming in the next wave of innovation.